Count 1, wanton endangerment in the first degree.
More than 6 months after she was shot and killed, one of 3 police officers involved in the death of Breonna Taylor has been charged. We break down the charges in the case not related to her death. All eyes are on Kentucky after that decision as protests continue for another night in Louisville. The latest as protesters and police clash. And here in Lexington, many have gathered to make their voices heard. We're downtown as groups continue to rally.
The Fox 56 10 o'clock news starts now.
Good evening. The decision has been a long-awaited one. A grand jury coming down with a short list of charges this afternoon. 3 counts of wanton endangerment against 1 former Louisville police officer in the death investigation of Breonna Taylor. The grand jury only indicted former Detective Brett Hankinson. This is Hankinson's mugshot at the Shelby County Detention Center. We've confirmed he's already posted bond. Our Kristen Flum is live in downtown Lexington as we begin our team coverage.
Marvin, we mentioned at the top of our newscast last night that Louisville seemed eerily quiet ahead of this decision as they were collectively, as a city, waiting to find out which way this would go. And almost immediately after that decision was handed up from the grand jury today, unrest began unfolding all across the Derby City. In fact, tonight we're following a developing situation that's playing out right now. We understand that 2 LMPD officers were shot in downtown Louisville tonight. This happening near Brook Street and Broadway in downtown Louisville. Been seeing some reports from witnesses on social media reporting a lot of fireworks in that area just before the shots rang out. But what we do know is 2 Louisville police officers were taken to the hospital, reportedly non-life-threatening injuries, and we are continuing to follow that developing situation that's going on tonight. Want to get you to some video out of Louisville from earlier tonight. If you look in the center of your screen, you will see a fire. That is at the Hall of Justice. Someone set some of the plywood, boarding it up, on fire. That happening around 8 o'clock tonight. The city curfew started at 9 o'clock. The Kentucky National Guard and KSP were also activated late this afternoon to help with crowd control. Back here in Lexington, a much more subdued crowd. Lexington Mayor Linda Gorton tweeted a plea for peace regardless of the way this decision went today. She tweeted that out this morning, and it appears that she got her wish. Still, this decision is what everyone is talking about downtown tonight. Victor Puente has a wrap-up of today's developments of a very emotional day all across the Commonwealth.
The wanton endangerment charges filed today against former Louisville detective Brett Hankinson were not connected to Breonna Taylor's death, but to bullets fired into a neighboring apartment the night she was killed.
He wantonly shot a gun into the apartment occupied by initials CN.
Attorney General Daniel Cameron said he knew this wasn't the outcome so many people had asked for.
This is a tragedy, and sometimes the criminal law is not adequate to respond to a tragedy. And I fully acknowledge that, and I know many that are watching today and those that are listening recognize that as well.
Taylor's family had said they wanted manslaughter charges. Cameron said they found the use of force by the other 2 officers, Sergeant John Mattingly and Detective Miles Cosgrove, was justified because they were shot at first by Taylor's boyfriend and returned fire. Taylor was hit 6 times.
This justification bars us from pursuing criminal charges in Miss Breonna Taylor's death.
The attorney for Taylor's family, Ben Crump, tweeted that the lack of other charges was, quote, outrageous and offensive. He says Hankinson should have been charged with wanton murder. While speaking in Arizona today, he said this showed their fight wasn't over.
She's in her apartment. She's in the sanctity of her home. The place where you are expected to be safe.
Wanton endangerment is a Class D felony. That means if Hankinson is convicted, he could face up to 5 years in prison for each of those 3 counts.
Justice is not often easy. It does not fit the mold of public opinion, and it does not conform to shifting standards. It answers only to the facts and to the law. With this in mind, we must now ask ourselves, where do we go from here?
Victor Puente, Fox 56 10 o'clock news.
We are hearing from one of the other officers involved in the Breonna Taylor investigation. An attorney for Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly released this statement defending the grand jury's decision to not indict Mattingly or Detective Miles Cosgrove. And it says in part, quote, "The death of Breonna Taylor is a tragedy, but these officers did not act in a reckless or unprofessional manner. They did their duty, performed their roles as law enforcement officers, and above all, did not break the law," end quote. Well, not long after Attorney General Daniel Cameron gave his thoughts on the grand jury's decision today, Governor Andy Beshear stepped to the podium to share his thoughts as well. And he, along with several Kentuckians, want to see the evidence. Governor Beshear, as you may recall, has walked in Attorney General Daniel Cameron's shoes before. He was the state's Attorney General just before he took the state's top job.
Just hours after the grand jury's decision was announced, Governor Beshear's previous suggestion to release the evidence that the jury considered turned to a request.
Everyone can and should be informed. And those that are currently feeling frustration, feeling hurt, they deserve to know more. I trust Kentuckians. They deserve to see the facts for themselves. And I believe that the ability to process those facts helps everybody.
Thousands of hours of interviews, ballistics reports, and conclusions from the state and the FBI were presented to the Jefferson County Grand Jury Monday. The 12-person panel continued to hear the findings until just before they announced the indictment of former Detective Brett Hankinson this afternoon.
Mr. Foreperson, is that the decision of the grand jury?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
State Representative Charles Booker, standing next to the governor today, says he was disappointed with the developments.
Justice failed us today. It failed us in a way that it has been failing us for generations. We are here doing this work. I was elected to do this work because we need to make justice ring true, because it has failed. A woman, black woman, was killed in her home by the agency paid for to protect and serve her. That's wrong. There is no justifying that.
Daniel Cameron does not want to release the evidence that he presented to the grand jury, and I asked his spokesperson, Elizabeth Kuhn, for a comment on that. Tonight, she sent me, releasing that information would compromise the federal investigation and violate a prosecutor's ethical duties. Cameron, we should also note, declined to publish the racial makeup of the grand jury. There were reporters asking for that today. He cited juror safety in his reason for not doing so. As we've been telling you, it is a developing situation still tonight in Louisville. Despite the 9 o'clock curfew, crowds are still gathering, and LMPD is investigating the shootings of 2 of their police officers. Caitlin Rust is following the situation in the Derby City.
We're here at the intersection of 6th and Chestnut. It seems that police are starting to disperse crowds because small fires are being kind of lit all over the area. Right here at this River City Bank, if you look down there where those fire department are, that's where a small fire was set. It was just smoldering. It wasn't actually burning. But if you take a look down this way, once this fire truck moves, we've got an entire line of LMPD moving down the street. I don't know why they're coming in this direction because there's very few protesters down here. But we're going to continue to monitor this situation as it develops. We're trying to head back towards Jefferson Square Park, where the focus is tonight, where all the protesters are tonight. There have been some small splinter groups that we've been following. That's why we're out this far. But right now we're going to make it back to the park in Louisville. Caitlin Rust.
It has been nearly 200 days since Breonna Taylor was killed in Louisville, and her name has been included in protests all across the country throughout the summer, including marches and demonstrations here in Lexington. That continues tonight. Chelsea Jones is live with reaction from the group that's been holding rallies down here. She's live with their story.
Well, tonight over 100 people were in downtown Lexington in response to today's grand jury decision. Now, they have gathered in front of the courthouse. Tonight, protests in Lexington have mostly been peaceful. People here tell us they are frustrated with the decision and hope to see more police accountability. Just take a listen.
A big crowd
tonight in downtown Lexington after a long-awaited decision. Those here tonight say they are frustrated by the charges against former Louisville police officer Brett Hankinson and the death of Breonna Taylor.
It feels like they drug it out intentionally. It feels like maybe they hoped that people would go home, that people would forget about it.
But tonight, the solidarity was strong. A diverse group calling for change, organizers with LPD Accountability and the Poor People's Campaign reminding the crowd to be nonviolent. Yet some nearby businesses felt the need to board up windows.
So we're just going to go ahead and board up the windows for them to keep the cost down for any damage of the business.
Protesters gathered at Courthouse Square, then headed through downtown, chanting in memory of Breonna Taylor.
It seemed like she was dismissed during the verdict and what we heard. So we are very concerned with the information that we got.
Now we are hearing that protesters in Lexington plan to keep up this fight. They say they will be out here tomorrow night and through the weekend. For now, live in Lexington, Chelsea Jones for the Fox 56 10 o'clock news.
Chelsea, thank you. And as we are seeing at this 10 o'clock hour, the rally that was organized here tonight seems to be splitting up and dispersing for the evening. No problems tonight that we know of. Coming up in our next half hour, why Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher says even though the grand jury has handed up their decision, this case isn't over. We're going to discuss that coming up at 10:30. For now, Marvin, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Kristen. We will come back to you in the next half hour. Well, tonight we're also hearing from Breonna Taylor's family. They said today was like living March 13th all over again. Her cousin in Grand Rapids, Michigan, said the death has left a wound that just won't heal.
We are not surprised, but we definitely stood hope that they would do the right thing in this country at the time that we are going through so much racial tension. It's just one black life after the next, and it hasn't stopped, and it just seems like it's increased, and our lives matter.
President Donald Trump was asked by reporters to comment on the grand jury decision. Here's what he had to say.
My message is that I love the black community, and I've done more for the black community than any other president. And I say, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln, and I mean that, with opportunity zones and with criminal justice reform, with prison reform, with what we've done for historically black universities, colleges, schools, what we've done. It's nobody's done more. Abraham Lincoln, let's give him the nod, but beyond that, nobody's done more. I love the black community. I don't know enough about it. I heard a decision was just made.
And Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden answered a question about this case before he left Charlotte, North Carolina. He said he doesn't know all the details, but is concerned for Taylor's mother and commented on protests.
They should be peaceful. Do not sully her memory or her mother's by engaging in any violence. It's totally inappropriate for that to happen. And she wouldn't want it, nor would her mother. So I hope they do that calmly.
Again, later we will check back in and continue our team coverage of today's grand jury decision in the Breonna Taylor case. More on the fallout from that grand jury decision as Kentuckians continue to struggle. Also, we talk about their wait on unemployment assistance. The next steps, as the governor says, more help is on the way.
A little rain rolling across southern Kentucky over the next couple of days. Then it is game on for the weekend forecast and a big change into next week. We'll break it all down for you in just a moment.
Governor Beshear briefly talked about Kentucky's COVID-19 cases today. 796 new cases have been reported in the state. That brings our total to more than 63,000 cases. 5 new deaths were reported. The total Kentuckians lost to the virus is now 1,124. The positivity rate is about 4.6%. Fayette County School Superintendent Manny Kalk sent a message to families updating them on the plan to return to classes. He says the district has been working on a hybrid approach for returning students to school. Kalk says the district learned this week from the health department there was a lag in data entry. There will be a special called board meeting Friday morning to determine the next steps. Governor Beshear says there's more help coming for people who lost their jobs in the form of more $400 weekly checks. The governor says that federal assistance will last 3 more weeks. It comes as some people are still struggling to get help for claims they filed all the way back when the pandemic first started. Phil Pendleton spoke to those who came to Frankfort today in hopes of getting help.
I started getting successful about 3 years ago.
But Paul Wood said everything changed for his Bourbon County business about 6 months ago.
Mine is simple. I own a business. The governor made us shut down somewhere in March the 10th, somewhere in there.
He is among several that come to Frankfort just for the chance that they can get some help with their unresolved claims. Ted Workman says he had an appointment after his unemployment payment suddenly stopped, and he can't get a good answer as to why.
Yeah, so I had to drive from Maysville. I had to find a gas money to get here and back. And then I never say, no, well, we can't find it on the list. Come on, man.
That's among many of the frustrations from people who say they cannot get help, as Governor Beshear announced an extension of the additional $400 weekly payments.
My complaint is that I can't even get in here at no time. I've been down here maybe 3 to 4 times. I even come down there when they have where anybody can walk in here, and nobody, I couldn't even get in that day.
No, I haven't got nothing. I haven't got a check for none in August, none in September yet. And, well, I'm getting ready to get evicted.
He lost his job, and now he's afraid he's going to lose his home and possibly a lot more. A common fear for many. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, the Fox 56 10 o'clock news.
Hi, everybody. Middle of the work week. Here we are, and facing a lot of clouds across the area again today. Those temperatures struggling to get out of the 60s. Now, with clouds at night, you do not get as much of a temperature drop as what you would get with a clear sky. So instead of the 40s, we're going to break that streak tonight for just about the entire region. We've had, 5-6 mornings in a row for the majority of the area with readings into the 40s. Right now, it's upper 50s and low 60s. Those clouds across the south spitting out a little bit of some light rain into southern Kentucky earlier in the day. It looked like it could rain at any point across many areas, but nope, the atmosphere is just not there in terms of widespread rain. A little shower into parts of Owensboro into western Kentucky. Plenty of cloud cover, and what will happen, this moisture plume is going to slide across Tennessee, and it really impacting southern and southeastern Kentucky. If you're watching us, Lexington Metro, up into northern Kentucky or west toward the Bluegrass Parkway area, rain chances are pretty low as we go through the next 24 hours. I do think a shower or two can make it all the way north of 64, but the majority of this stuff is going to hang out across the south and southeast. So tomorrow, clouds will be around. That chance for a shower across the north, southeastern Kentucky, good opportunity for some pretty good downpours along the Virginia border counties. I think the models are underplaying the cloud cover yet again tomorrow and into tomorrow night. But again, not everybody sees rain tomorrow. Mainly south, mainly south, mainly south. We're driving that point home. With temperatures that will be upper 60s. Northern Kentucky may hit the low 70s. 7 o'clock in the morning. Best opportunity for a little rain again is across the south and southeast. The temperature trend is much cooler in the north than it is for the rest of the area. So you get locked into those clouds tomorrow. You get a little shower here or there. Temperature is going to be on the cool side. So maybe a jacket tomorrow. End of the day on Friday. Cloud cover slow to get out of town. Some 70s will show up into the afternoon. Still a little leftover rain across the east. If you're looking for a really good day, for the most part, that's your Saturday. Upper 70s, we may hit 80 degrees in some areas as we go into Saturday. That would set the stage for a very active setup to come our way as we go into next week. Now, one of the computer models, by the way, Thursday and into Friday, not spitting out a ton of rain. Another computer model says, I got a ton of rain I'm going to spit out. Well, how about we just take a happy medium there and we say far southeastern Kentucky has the chance for an inch or two of rain. Most areas are dry through the weekend. That temperature trend is closing in on 80 on Saturday. An isolated shower or thunderstorm late Sunday, but Marvin, the majority of that weekend is dry. Look at the extended, though. You get into next week, we may be lucky to get to 60. I think we can string together, Marvin, 3 or 4 days at the beginning of October where highs are in the 50s with a frost threat at the end of next week.
There you go. You can tell for sure October just around the corner. All right. Thank you, Chris. A couple in Nebraska celebrated their diamond anniversary by taking a trip back in time. Next in the spotlight, the story behind these photos that have racked up thousands of likes and shares on Facebook.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Marvin, this is a phrase I did not suspect I would utter. A Mississippi woman's slithering surprise is in the spotlight tonight.
Indeed. Christina Mitchell told her local newspaper that when she got home from work last week, a snake landed on her head. The rat snake had apparently been lodged on top of her front door. Mitchell says she felt a thump on her head, and when she looked down, the snake had landed at her feet. She told the paper the 10-inch serpent darted into the kitchen, but Mitchell grabbed a broom and ushered it right out of the house.
Well, that's what you do with a rat snake, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
The broom will take care of just about anything, but can you imagine that? Just boom, falling, hitting you on the head?
Welcome home.
Welcome home. Yeah, that's a welcome home surprise. Well, it's the time of year when people start outfitting their homes and porches with all kinds of ghouls and goblins ahead of Halloween. And one home gave an Illinois police officer a bit of a scare, or at least made him do a double take. Check this out. The Island Lake Police Department had fun with the video on its Facebook page. The video shows a dark figure sitting on the steps. It's captioned, "Not what you want to see when you're patrolling at 4 in the morning." The officer shines a little light on the figure and has a laugh when he sees it's just Mr. Smoky Bones enjoying the cool autumn air and not an actual bad guy waiting on the doorsteps. The officer added, "Thank you for keeping us on our toes." I got to see the light on it again. Do we see it?
Maybe. Let's see. There's no question about it. That looks.
There we go.
That looks like a real person sitting on the porch.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yep. Is that moving, or is that like just a moth or something in front of it?
I think it's stationary. I hope it's stationary.
I hope so. Yeah, right? Yeah. You're going to get a lot of looks. All right, a Nebraska couple celebrated 60 years of marriage, Marvin, with a photo shoot in their original wedding outfits.
Yeah, how cool is that? Marvin and Lucille Stone got married in 1960, and they've lived happily ever after. In celebration of their diamond anniversary, photographer Katie Autry took outdoor portraits of the couple in their wedding best,
Isn't that great?
Including the gown the bride made herself 6 decades ago. The pictures quickly went viral on Facebook with hundreds of likes and comments. 3 children, and 60 years later, in a word of advice for the other romantics, the Stones stressed good communication and open-mindedness is the secret to lasting happiness.
I want to know how they kept the clothes that intact for that long, too,
and
right?
How good still can get in them.
And they could still get in them. Y'all rocking that. I like it.
Yeah.
Good job.
Very nice photos. Yeah. That's what's in the spotlight tonight. Well, coming up, more reaction to charges filed in the Breonna Taylor case, including how those at UK are processing today's decision. Welcome back. A lot of eyes are on Kentucky after a decision is made in the Breonna Taylor case. Kristen Flum continues to follow the reaction.
Marvin, but in downtown Lexington tonight, all is quiet. There was a group of about 150 people that made a couple of laps around downtown Lexington tonight, sharing their thoughts and talking about today's landmark decision that played out here in Kentucky. They stepped off about 8 o'clock after a brief gathering here at Courthouse Plaza. But the situation in Louisville, very different tonight. We told you at the top of the newscast, 2 LMPD police officers were shot tonight. About 15 minutes ago, we did get an update from Louisville police on the shooting. They did confirm 2 officers shot, both of them at University Hospital. One is in surgery. Both are in stable condition with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say they have 1 suspect in custody. Louisville's interim police chief didn't say much, but he is concerned tonight.
I am very concerned about the safety of our officers. Obviously, we've had 2 officers shot tonight, and that is very serious. It's a very dangerous condition. I think that the safety of our officers and the community we serve is of utmost importance.
Now, police tonight in Louisville are not releasing the injured officers' names. Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher spoke briefly this evening after the grand jury's decision was handed up. He's calling on the city of Louisville to turn to each other, not against each other. And he says that justice for Breonna Taylor also means a commitment to eliminating systemic and structural racism along with societal barriers.
And I can tell you, just as I have been working on this, you have my solemn oath that I'm committed to continuing this work. And this work really requires all of us together to work together to create a future that doesn't repeat the mistakes of the past. That's the challenge, and it's also the opportunity that we're facing in this rare historic moment.
Mayor Fisher was one of the other people who says he will now call on Attorney General Daniel Cameron to release the evidence that he presented to the grand jury for their consideration on charges against these officers. As I reported at the top of the newscast, though, the Attorney General doesn't want to do that while there is a federal investigation ongoing and while this detective is facing criminal charges in court in Louisville. The mayor said today that the case is not over. While the Attorney General's investigation is complete, the FBI is doing its own independent investigation into the Breonna Taylor shooting. That investigation is looking into any potential civil rights violations that may have happened back in March. Federal investigators were at Taylor's apartment in June to re-examine the physical and the video evidence that they have. They also talked to witnesses from around the apartment complex that night. The FBI ballistics report was also a key piece of evidence that Attorney General Cameron's investigation had. The mayor added that LMPD is also doing their own investigation and says that that could lead to discipline with these officers internally within LMPD. A lot of people here in Lexington and across the Commonwealth are just now beginning to process the indictment that was handed up by the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case. Some say that justice was not served in this case. They didn't like the outcome, while others are asking people to respect the grand jury's decision and the process it took to get there. Shelby Smithson has reaction from the University of Kentucky, where Breonna Taylor did spend one semester.
Count 3. Similar to around the country, eyes on the campus of UK were glued to their screens, watching the indictment in Breonna Taylor's case, as well as the explanation from Attorney General Daniel Cameron.
I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I can't expect the system that murdered her to give it justice.
For some, it was an immediate response, feeling like the absence of charges directly related to Taylor's death meant no justice was served at all. Others are still processing all of the evidence shared Wednesday.
I don't know what I was expecting, honestly.
President Eli Capilouto sent a message out to the entire campus community saying the MLK Center and counseling centers would be open for students who need to reflect or ask questions. In his post, he says, quote, "How Breonna's tragic death is addressed as a matter of law is not something I or anyone on our campus can control or ordain. What we can control is how we respond as a community."
Your viewership should adjust their expectations. There will not be a quick resolution on this case. This is going to take some time.
UK law professor Blanche Bong-Cook is still looking ahead to the next steps of the trial process. And as for her opinion on the indictment itself, her jury is still out.
I'd like a lot more evidence in this case, but I also understand that there's some real parameters here to releasing the evidence to the public. I understand that the prosecutors involved in the case have ethical obligations that require them to maintain some secrecy.
In Lexington, Shelby Smithson for the Fox 56 10 o'clock news.
The president of the University of Louisville also released a statement today. President Neely Bendapudi said, quote, "While I am pleased that the grand jury has acknowledged the unlawful actions of this police officer and that he will be tried for the unnecessary violence he caused that night, I am disappointed that our justice system allows these atrocities to occur all too often with relatively little consequence," end quote. And as we mentioned earlier in the newscast, former Detective Brett Hankinson turned himself in to the Shelby County Detention Center this evening. He posted his $15,000 full cash bond that was recommended by the Attorney General and was released. If convicted, Hankinson could face up to 5 years on each of those wanton endangerment first-degree charges. Reporting live in downtown Lexington, Kristen Flum for the Fox 56 10 o'clock news.
Thank you, Kristen. Now, the ACLU called the grand jury indictment, quote, "the latest miscarriage of justice in our nation's long history of denying that Black lives matter." The statement goes on to say this outcome shows us that true police accountability does not exist in Kentucky. Earlier this month, Breonna Taylor's family reached a settlement with the city of Louisville. The $12 million settlement also includes a long list of police reforms. The agreement requires a commanding officer to review and give written approval for all search warrants. Paramedics must also be present when a warrant is executed. Reforms also include an early action warning system to identify officers with red flags and removes the police chief's option to close cases against officers by exception, which allowed an officer to resign or retire without discipline. Many people have begun to pay their respects to late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg as she lies in repose at the Supreme Court. Details the senator's battle over her Supreme Court seat next in News Notes. Late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is lying in repose at the Supreme Court, giving pundits and the public the opportunity to honor her life and legacy. That tops tonight's Fox 56 News Notes. An army of more than 100 of Justice Ginsburg's former clerks stood watch over her casket. Some accompanied it up to the Great Hall, where the liberal icon presided for almost 30 years. On Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats are at odds on how and when to fill Justice Ginsburg's seat before the election. President Trump has said he will announce a nominee at the White House this Saturday.
Thank you very much.
The United States announced today a new series of restrictions against Cuba. President Trump said American travelers will be prohibited from staying at properties owned by the Cuban government, as well as limitations on importing Cuban alcohol and tobacco. Trump said these actions will ensure that U.S. dollars will go directly to the Cuban people and not fund the Cuban regime.
Great job.
Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci went head-to-head during a Senate hearing today. The Kentucky senator talked about New York, saying the city had the virus under control because of herd immunity, not restrictions. Fauci corrected him, saying that just 22% of the public has the antibodies that could stop the spread of the disease. Coming up in sports, high school football games in Fayette County could be in jeopardy this Friday. Plus, where should Kentucky have a big advantage over Auburn on Saturday? Wdky has that answer in the Fox 56 Sports Extra.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Thermometers today reaching the upper 60s and low 70s in a lot of real estate across the land. Late this evening, it's high 50s and low 60s. You were noticing a fair amount of clouds across the region today. We actually had rain into southern Kentucky, and look what is trying to go up here across the west. A couple of isolated showers from Warren County back toward the southwest. Got a little rain, Evansville, Owensboro. The majority of that, though, is on the wimpy side because you've got clouds that are across the entire region. As you get into tomorrow, low pressure, what is left of beta. This was a tropical storm a few days ago. Well, it's no longer tropical. It is over top of Louisiana, and it is going to push up some moisture into southern and southeastern Kentucky for the day tomorrow. So the farther south you go, better opportunity for some rain. Temperatures may be stuck into the low and mid 60s for a lot of the region. Better part of Friday and into Saturday, we are mainly on the dry side, especially on Saturday into Sunday. Long range call into early next week. Here we go with a big fall blast by Tuesday and Wednesday.
Time now for the Fox 56 Sports Extra.
3 weeks into the season, and there is a possibility that high school sports in Fayette County could be put on hold for 2 weeks now that the county has moved into the red for state metric on COVID-19 cases. Right now, that would affect 5 football games, 5 volleyball matches, and a handful of boys and girls soccer matches. According to the Fayette County Public Schools release, the increase in the incidence rate is directly linked to cases among University of Kentucky students. Superintendent Manny Cox says there will be a special called board meeting Friday morning to hear more from public health experts to better inform the next steps. Kentucky football has been picked 4th by the media in the SEC East preseason rankings, while 6 UK players have been named to all SEC teams. 4 of those 6 are linemen. You know, there's that old football cliche that says the game is won and lost in the trenches, and on paper, the Wildcats certainly appear to have the advantage over Auburn on the offensive and defensive lines. Kentucky certainly does have more experience, and defensive coordinator Brad White says it'll come down to physicality.
We've just got to be physical from start to finish. I think our guys are prepared to be physical, having to go against our offense every single day. We know, the physicality that they play with, and so I think it's helped ingrain it. Coach Stoops' mentality here, and our players reflect that.
UK senior offensive tackle Luke Fortner has been named to the All-State AFCA Good Works team. He is just one of 11 players in FBS football to be selected. Last fall, Fortner played a significant role in helping a team of Toyota manufacturing engineers design a push cart vehicle through a project called Lift Them Up. The push cart vehicle, as you see there, provides a Kentucky Children's Hospital patient the chance to accompany the Wildcats on the catwalk. Olivier Sarr has been given a waiver by the NCAA that would allow him to play for the Wildcats this season, according to multiple reports. However, it's still not a guarantee that Sarr will be eligible to play, and that's because the SEC still needs to grant an additional waiver that would allow the Wake Forest transfer to bypass a conference rule that states student athletes with less than 2 years of eligibility remaining must fulfill a residence requirement of 1 full academic year, meaning the SEC will have to waive that rule in order for Sarr to play this season. Reds with a chance to win its final home series tonight in Game 3 against Milwaukee. Bottom of the first, Joey Votto entered tonight's game 0 for 22 against the Brewers this season. Not anymore. The 2-run shot gives the Reds a 2-0 lead. 4th inning, Jesse Winker smacks a solo shot down the right field line. It's 3-0 good guys. Bottom 5th now 3-1. Eugenio Suarez is going to put a stamp on this one with a 3-run shot. Trevor Bauer goes 8 innings, allowing just 1 run, striking out 12, and the Reds get the win 6-1. That's a look at sports. Stay with us for 5 things to know before you go to bed, including an unusual call for help. Find out about an intruder that ruffled a few feathers.
California will halt sales of new gasoline-powered passenger cars and trucks by 2035. Governor Gavin Newsom says the move will cut greenhouse gas emissions by 35% in the nation's most populous state. The proposed rule would not ban people from owning gas-powered cars or selling them on the used car market, but it would end the sales of all new gasoline-powered passenger cars and trucks in the state of nearly 40 million people. Elton John is coming back to Rupp Arena. The pop icon was scheduled to perform in Lexington back in June, but it was canceled because of COVID-19, like so many big events in the city and around the world. Today, Elton John announced his farewell Yellow Brick Road tour will return to Rupp Arena in April of 2022. Uncle Ben's rice products are getting a new name, Ben's Original. Mars is also dropping the package logo that depicts a Chicago head waiter. It's part of the company's previously announced plans to create a more inclusive brand. The new branding will hit shelves next year. The story of a famous British World War II hero will be seen on the big screen. Movie rights have been secured for Sir Tom Moore's inspirational story. The former Army captain raised more than $40 million for British health charities by walking 100 laps in his garden to mark his 100th birthday. He was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in July. An unusual call for help in Loudoun County, Virginia. The homeowners heard strange noises in their bathroom and called 911. Deputies arrived, opened the door, and found a wild turkey had gotten inside after breaking a window. Animal control showed up to take the bird into custody. It was released in the front yard and quickly scampered away. There you go, 5 things to know before you go to bed. All right, well, we have a little blast of October here already. Right?
Yeah, we do. You know what? We've had it for the past week or so now. This is the final 7-day forecast for the month of September. Bless you over there, by the way. We are dealing with a big cold shot coming next week, Marvin.
All right, thank you, Chris. Thank you for being with us. We're back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock.